I'd like to call this Planning Commission to order this Wednesday, October the 25th. May I have a roll call, please?
Chairwoman Amanda Denmark.
Here.
Vice Chairman Charlie Whitmore.
Present.
Commissioner Michael Brock. Commissioner Rich Delcor.
Here.
Commissioner Lydia DePaul.
Here.
Commissioner Jim Flynn. Commissioner Jason Stewart.
Here.
Notice regarding adjournment, the Planning Commission will not hear new items after 9:30 p.m. unless authorized by a majority vote of the commission members present. Items which have not been heard before 9:30 may be continued to the next regular meeting or a special meeting date as determined by the commission members. Notice regarding public comment. Every member of the public who is recognized to speak shall address the chairman, and in speaking, avoid disrespect to commission staff or other members of the meeting. State your name and address when speaking for the record. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. May I have an adoption of the agenda?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
May I have adoption of the minutes for September the 27th?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Public comments for items not on the agenda. We have no public comments. Old business, Big Blue Marble Academy, Certificate of Appropriateness, Highway Corridor Overlay, a request by Samantha Kozlowski, I don't know, developer manager on behalf of the parcel owners for approval of a Certificate of Appropriateness. Go ahead, Katie.
I like the smooth move on the ditching how to pronounce the word with numbers in it. So this is a request for the landscaping, lighting, and architecture for Big Blue Marble Academy, which is an 11,293 square foot, 1-story childcare facility, which includes an outdoor play area, the associated parking. It's located at the intersection of Mill Creek Boulevard and Oakley Highway, which is 170, which is why it is in the highway corridor. It is in the Jones Estate PUD, and it is in the Cypress Ridge Master Planned area. So we review it based on all of those criteria. This is one, again, I'd like to refresh your memory. The development plan has already been reviewed through the Planning Commission, and the final development plan submitted and reviewed through the DRC. So if they are addressing, they're still addressing final comments on that, but the organization of the site has pretty much been addressed through the development plan process. We're just looking at the landscaping, lighting, and architecture. So this is the site plan. As you can see, the front has been labeled in big red down here because this is the front of the site. In the highway corridor, the highway is always the front of the site, no matter how the site functions. So we have Mill Creek Boulevard here. Slater runs across the top. The play area that I referenced in the agenda language is this area right in here. And this is one that was before you all just a few months ago. I think we have a couple new members since that time, so slow me down, make me go backwards to be in any further detail for anyone who is not as familiar with this project as the rest of you. I did include as the first attachment the entire packet, including the staff report and attachments for the presentation that happened a couple months ago. So. They have addressed a lot of those concerns. These are the renderings that they provided just so that you had an idea of what it was looking like. This is the area, this is the front, so this space is 170. They have inset mechanical equipment into the roofline of this gable here, and this is the view from the other direction, so that hood equipment is right in, is there a mouse there? Yeah, in this area right here is how that's being proposed. These are the elevations. The tiny one is the one that was what was proposed at the previous iteration of this when it was new business. This is now the revised elevations are the bigger ones. So facing Slater Street / the parking lot, which is the front for operational purposes, is this elevation here, but the front for highway corridor purposes is the bottom picture here. So you can see that they did address a handful of the comments that you guys had at the previous commission meeting by centering these gables, turning all of the window lights to be vertical rather than horizontal. I cannot do that every time I have to do my cross there. They've changed the door pattern so that it is the same on all of the doors which go across. They've centered the gables over elements that are beneath them rather than having them off-centered just a little bit, as you can see right here. And they have put the mechanicals from flat on the face of the roof into the roof line. This is the side elevation for both of those. So this faces the play area here, and this is what faces the west elevation, which is that Mill Creek Boulevard entrance. You can see the dashed lines show the HVAC units, which we had them move from the front elevation to the side elevation so that they're not on the 170 fronting elevation. They also changed the roof pitch in this iteration from a 4 and 12 on the main with lower than 4 and 12 on the gables to 4 and 12 on the gables and 6 and 12 as the main mass. Here are the dumpster enclosure. I will go backwards a little bit in a second, but this is the dumpster enclosure detail. The challenge that we had with the dumpster enclosure was that it was CMU block and it did not have a finish. They have proposed the brick finish to match the building on the dumpster enclosure, so they've brought that into compliance as well. The exterior finish colors and materials, oyster gray, white, Monterey taupe. This screen fence is what is being proposed with the HVAC units. There's a steel fence that is a little further in the details here, which is the one that you see wrapping around the rest of the property here. They've cleared up the circulation challenge that was at this corner with the pinch point, so it has been pulled away from that corner. I did highlight the 2 areas where it still is up against the front of those columns. The narrative had it as being pulled off that, but I think just as an oversight, it has not yet been pulled off. There is space to do so. So it's not a concern to pull it off the front as a condition of the approval. However, it is still touching the column based on this version of it. This is the landscape plan. As we discussed at the last one, there was a challenge with the circulation because the cars would come in, the handicap parking space was over here along with the sidewalk that brought it to here, but all of the people pulling in are going to turn right when they come in because that's where the handicap and the entrance was on this side here. It has been pulled so that it is no longer on this side, which means now more cars will turn left as they come in and be able to have the full circulation of the site. Hopefully not create the challenge that I see on Buckwalter Parkway every single morning of the world when I'm running late to work. They have changed the size of the plantings that are in front of the transformer here, raised those in height some, and they've changed where the sidewalk is, so those pokey things that were going to poison littles are no longer pokey and poison next to a sidewalk, so they have modified that as well. They did remove the pedestrian door here so that it's just a front entrance on the dumpster, which means you won't have the conflict with the door there. However, Mr. Brock did bring up to my attention that this is a rather small area for that large canopy tree with the dumpster, which will be an overhead dump and may cause problems there, so they may need to think about the location of that tree. It does need to have a tree because it is a landscape island. It is a requirement to have said tree. So that may just need to be adjusted a bit in order to reflect that. The lighting plan, no changes were made to the lighting plan. However, changes to the landscape plan did mean that the lighting plan no longer had the same issues that it had in the previous version because the conflict was with the landscaping and the lighting at the same time. Their numbers are still just fine. The location of their lights is no longer in conflict with the trees. The 2 items that I do still need is that, 1, the Planning Commission make a determination on the appropriateness of the use of LED lights because they are not permitted by our code. This is something we see all the time. And the other one is that the information regarding it being a full cutoff fixture is just not listed clearly, at least on the information that we received with the submittal. So information on it being a full cutoff to ensure that those are not going to be a problem to the residential behind it and that they meet the requirements of the ordinance are the 2 lighting challenges that are still being faced there. So this is just the up close and personal of that. I went through all of these. This is a little bit hard to read. It is a little bit hard to read on the submittal version as well, but it can zoom in a bit better when I'm looking at it on the full screen. So just something to ensure that these are full cutoffs. Otherwise, there's no issue with that. Are you all still following? Good deal. I'm going really fast. So with this being a certificate of appropriateness, the review criteria that are applicable are those which are set forth in section 317.3 of our Unified Development Ordinance. It is that they are in compliance with Article 5 design standards. However, because this is located in the Jones Estate and not within the Unified Development Ordinance regulated document, that is not applicable. So it is to be in compliance with the development agreement, PUD concept plan, PUD master plan, subdivision, and any other regulating documents, which would include the development plan. And then the application must comply with the application's manual. It is in compliance with the application's manual. Design Article 5 doesn't apply. It is, for the most part, in compliance with all of the development agreement, concept plan, master plan, with a few small exceptions that I will bring to your attention in just a moment. The HPC has the authority to approve the application as submitted by the applicant, approve the application. Yeah, did I say HPC? I'm so sorry. The HPC has no authority whatsoever over this application. So the Planning Commission has the authority to approve this application as submitted by the applicant, approve the application with conditions, or deny the application as submitted by the applicant. With the permission of the applicant, the option to table is something that exists as well. The applicant provided me a little bit more information at 9:44 p.m. last night. Their architects were working overtime after we had a phone conversation about some of these items. We were playing phone tag for a minute. So I do have a couple things to draw attention to. But the items that in the submittal documents that you have thus far seen, because what you have thus far seen is what exists as the submittal documents, they have addressed all of the conditions that were outlined in the staff report except the following, which is the roof mechanicals that are shown on the front elevation. In the screened nook inset in the roof line, with the International Mechanical Code that the town of Bluffton uses, which is the 2021 version, there's a requirement for 10 feet of clearance horizontal from all other parts of the building, or, with an exception, 5 feet of clearance from all other parts of the building if it is vented away from the structure. So it would have to be vented away from both walls. So in theory, if this is the nook that it's sitting in, this is one wall of the building, this is the other wall, and this is the edge, it could vent this direction away from the walls and have 5 feet of clearance. However, it still has to be 10 feet away from the intake, and it, even with 5 feet away from the intake and the walls, would stand proud of the ridge line with the way that it is currently drawn and the dimensions of that nook. That's the term I'm using today. So I use a different one every time, I think. So that is a bit of a challenge there. The second item is that the fence has not been pulled away from the front columns, where I highlighted on the screen there. The lighting are the two items that I've already mentioned with the LEDs, and also to ensure that all of those fixtures are cutoffs. And then the other items that have to be addressed, they are fairly administrative, because they are that the final development plan needs to be approved prior to the issuance of this. They have gone to DRC. They are, if not have, addressed all of the items that DRC has commented on. They would not affect the site plan. It would just be administrative stuff that they're still working towards, because the development plan must be approved 1 second before the certificate of appropriateness so that it falls in the right order. And then the last one is the comment that I put on every single commercial structure. Signage must be submitted through the town of Bluffton for a sign permit rather than being approved as a portion of this certificate of appropriateness. So 4A and B, very administrative. 3A, something we see all the time. 3B, something that I need a little bit more information, and as long as they can show that, which this type of light does have a cutoff version or full cutoff version. So the two items that are design forward are the hood system and the fence on the front elevation. So first, do you have any questions? I put a whole slide in here for it.
Keep on going?
Okay.
Everybody
So supplemental pictures 1, 2, and 3 are on the screen here. After a conversation with a couple of our planning commissioners and the applicant, they've made a couple changes. The applicant is here to speak on behalf of the project. Samantha is here, and so is Matt from Cranston. And they can answer some of these questions that you may have as it relates to this. However, what has been modified here that we're looking at is that the roof line has been pulled back down from a 6 and 12, from a 4 to a 6, now it's 5. The reason for doing so, that was going to lower the ridge of that roof by 3-ish feet, which will make this area here a little smaller, because when you pull it to 6, it became very long and blank facade.
There was a lot of space above the, what do you call this?
Windows,
No, the,
Gables?
where they walk under. Yeah, the gables,
the gables.
I guess. The porch areas.
Porch?
There was a lot
On
of
the
space
front
on the
elevation
roof
as
on
well.
the 6, yeah.
Yes, so
Right there.
this is what you're talking.
You get a lot of space up high.
So when it's pulled higher, as you can see here, between the ridge of this gable and the ridge of the side gable, you've got more space, obviously, here and here, as well as on the side elevation. This space that was squatty in a good way has become bigger when you increase that roof line. So they're
That
fixed
took it from 30 feet down to 27-ish.
26.9. That was
But they
good.
also changed the dormers to be less than 4 and 12.
They do, I see that.
What?
There's a 3 up
Oh,
there.
no.
Yeah, that needs to be
That's-
back to,
That would need to go back to 4 and 12 in order to meet the requirements here.
yes.
And then added the bracket detail in the gabled in. It is not touching the sides here like it is on the front elevation. However, the intent is to do so. This is a,
Quick mock-up.
yes, quick mock-up to be able to show us a little bit of something. So that is going to look like this here, but in the other end, okay? And again, applicant can speak to a lot of this as well, but I'm walking through some of it here. And then moving the kitchen vent to the side elevation here, which our ordinance requires that it is not on the front elevation. This would meet that requirement. It also does put another, detail's not exactly the word I want to use, but it is some interest on that side elevation as well. This is the side that faces the playground. The other side has the door centered between the windows, and they did pull that door back to center.
Thank you.
3.5 inches, just for you, Commissioner Denmark. But that is, this side faces Mill Creek Boulevard, where the bottom side faces towards the playground, and then beyond the playground is the wetlands, so there is more of a buffer on that side. And so pulling the hood system out of the side is highly preferred to the front elevation, which it cannot be. And so that is where they've proposed to move that.
And the makeup stays up on that roof.
That is how it is currently drawn.
Exhausting.
I will, yes. We were questioning that. She had made a phone call to the architect in between me coming up here and now. And then this is supplemental image 3, which this shows the makeup in that front cranny, nook and cranny. And it also shows the roof line being brought down. It does, so those gable,
Dormers?
shed dormers would need to meet the 4 and 12 in order to meet the requirements of this ordinance. So, and I did have a conversation with them about the columns with the beams as well. They understand what we're looking for and so that they have no issue doing that. It is not shown currently, but could be easily modified from that should you see that be acceptable. The final thing that I brought to their attention after it was brought to my attention, I think by Commissioner Wetmore, was that the fence along the rear elevation, rather than pressing it right against the brick base of those columns, could potentially go in between the columns so that the columns act as the post. I'm sorry, it was not, it was Chairman Denmark. However, pulling it in between those so that it is not sitting flush against the columns on the side, that while it is not the front of the site, it is the front of the operational, since they do need that for security purposes for the small children not to run out and get squished by cars. So,
Are they going to electrify it? Just keep going.
no. I will not let them electrify it. I'm going to have you test it, though. So these are the supplemental
Children's
images.
Master
It
was-
was.
All right.
While it is not the complete norm for how applications are presented, as this is old business and we're working our way towards something, if the solutions that they have provided as supplemental images, because they got them to me early enough that I could get them in the slide, If you wish to make a motion based on those, I would request that your motion include, as shown in the supplemental images 1, 2, and 3 during the 10:25 meeting, and then any conditions that you may have in addition to those. But that would, in the supplemental images shown during this meeting, would be adequate for those pictures that I showed you that are not necessarily in the staff report, as this will be included in the minutes.
Park
That's
on
it.
each of those supplemental images for 15, 20 seconds. Just
Which one?
Let us soak it in.
Okay.
And just for future reference, if something like this happens, can you give printed copies
Yes, I can. I'm so sorry.
or an email?
Yeah.
In,
It's not a biggie, it's just,
in your motion, could you go to the motion for a second?
The motion is absolutely just a proposed and does not.
No, I know.
Okay.
But in one of those, we'd have to talk about the 4 and 12 versus the 3 and 12. You haven't added that, right?
I have not, because that was just brought to my attention.
And just because it bugs me, because they do it wrong on my projects all of the time, the column and beam alignment, please, make sure. That's it. Just found one today, and I got really mad about it. A prominent location, it's not my fault.
The shed roofs on the dormers be increased in pitch.
I think you have it right on the roof plan, it's just that one elevation's showing a 3 on the supplemental.
It has been minimum of 4.
can you go to supplemental 3 so we can look at that as well, please?
Absolutely.
And what was changed on here, just the,
Roof pitch drops back down, so you've got the different distance here. You can see only the intake, because the exhaust would be coming out the side here, and then
Do we have a cut sheet or know how tall that exhaust fan's really going to be? I mean, is that the actual size that's shown?
I do have a note, just so we don't run into this issue again. Please, applicant, please realize that if that makeup air is installed and it's peeking out over that roof, that will not meet the requirements. So make sure with your curb, with your makeup air, everything is below that front elevation roof line, including the angle that'll be there. I think you've got, I'm in the AC business, I think you've got the room there, but just make sure of it before you build it. From the front elevation.
Anybody else have any other thoughts while she's still typing that? Go ahead.
He's got a whole
Lydia.
book over there.
Because I know we need to add some things, probably.
I have a couple questions. The first one,
Should we open it up to the applicant before your
want one?
questions or after your questions, Commissioner DePaul?
Is it something that the applicant
Is
needs?
it questions for me or questions for the applicant?
anyone that wants to answer.
Would the applicant like to speak? Okay.
Just push it.
We just kind of.
She'll have better answers.
Samantha Kozlowski from 814 Development. Do you need address? No, okay. What's your
On the
question?
application, right?
Oh, yes.
On the roof plan, it looks like there are perhaps power attic fan vents or something on the 170 side that don't show up on the elevations.
You're referring to these items.
The 3 items near the ridge.
Right on the top.
Gotcha.
Okay, so looking at these items, and those would just need to be, you'd want to see those added onto the elevations?
They should not be facing 170.
They need to be swapped to the other side. They just like vents for bathroom or.
Going the wrong way. Sorry, guys.
This is the project at night before the lighting's added.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
So they're currently not shown on the elevations. However, they would need to be shown on the elevations and moved to the side here.
Okay, yeah, that shouldn't be an issue. We could make that a condition of approval as well. I don't think that should be any problem.
Question for Katie, maybe, I saw in the staff report something about the meter location. Is the fact that it's not screened fine because it's on the side?
Elevation.
Okay,
The power company has modified, sorry, I'm getting a little closer to the mic because it doesn't pick up. The power company has modified a lot of their regulations as to what they will accept. So there could be a screen that sits like I think it's 3 feet away from it as a single wall, but it still has to be accessible fully. And
No gates.
They have plantings and so
they have a service yard fence in front of it, it's just that the fence is like
yeah.
super low. Okay,
They have changed the rules on us. Not the applicant, the
But
electric.
do you think that, can we look at that elevation?
Yeah.
If you think that it needs to be moved up to be more appropriate, then you can suggest that.
it just seems odd to put a
Tell me which-
screen in front of it that doesn't conceal it. Unless I'm misreading the dashed hidden lines on that.
I think those are just the condensing units themselves. I don't think it's,
This here, it's the electric meter that she's looking at here.
yeah, but I mean, there's not like a fence around that, right?
What's the,
I think that it technically is kind of enclosed by the same fence that's fencing in the HVAC units shown there. It should be encompassed within
Oh, I
that
see the
area,
note. I see the
and
note
that
for
should
that.
provide a little bit of screening.
That's difficult to see.
doesn't really print out very much either, so.
Yeah.
Oh, it's cool. Get rid of that fence, that's right at the playground. Kids can go wherever they want.
It's an invisible fence.
It's this PDF on there. It's really what it is.
Well, so we're talking about
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
but it's really, you can't tell what that is, so. I think she's looking to see what that is.
I'm sorry, it's not real there, but we can try here.
It's detail 7 on A312. It's 3'4".
So tall kids can still go over it.
Tall kids can still get over it, yes.
Okay. If we don't have a requirement, that's
Playground,
fine.
you
It was
give
just a
them extra
question.
stuff to do, yeah.
That's her around the condensing unit.
But it's on the playground side.
Tall kids can still get it.
So you may want to raise that
It's more just a question.
so that the children cannot access it.
We could make that a recommendation. Would you want to raise it to 6 foot instead of 4? I think is what's currently proposed, the 4-foot screening from
It's showing 3'4" on this detail, so,
We definitely could raise it. I don't have any issue with that.
I mean, honestly, the organization that licenses daycares and schools probably will catch that if it needs to be higher too.
It's not a hill I need to die on. It was just a question.
no,
since there's a-
yeah, I think just look into it and just for the daycare purposes, they may want to increase the height of that.
Because we're gonna have to do the child check as
Yeah.
well, so that may come up anyway, but we can look into it and see if that would be something.
And there's just a maximum that you can do, right, Katie? 6, the max, 8? We don't want to do that.
There's no,
So let's say no larger than 6, no taller than 6 feet, just
Well,
to-
and Katie, to ask a clarifying question, if we approve this the way it is, are they're kind of stuck at that 3'4", correct?
Well, we could
Unless
put it in
note-
the recommendation of it.
No, I'm just saying, if we don't note it, then
Yes,
they'd have to come back.
yes.
Yeah, so we
So
want to
we
note.
note it
As a condition
no
of
greater
approval.
than 6.
Okay, no problem.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. That's fine. Yeah. Other question, I wasn't sure, is the new 5 and 12 version, does your perspective still look, other than the roof pitch, obviously, but how the mechanical equipment is seated, is that still the same as that perspective?
So the vent, the exhaust vent is, we rerouted it so that it vents out the east side of the building, so it'll look a little bit different. The makeup air unit will still exist within that parapet, but we have the height on the roof in order to hide it from Highway 170, so I don't foresee it being an issue or anything that would be visible. We can definitely screen it from view, because right there you're seeing obviously the taller exhaust that we had, but since we changed it, now it'll be coming out the east elevation.
Yeah, the tall one's not there.
Yeah,
Goes away and shows up.
yeah, it's just kind of that smaller square makeup air unit, if you will.
And this
Even-
here stays in that cubby.
And from perspective, I guess, coming in, the other roofs kind of block it. Like the gable roof, the dormer roof, all that kind of stuff.
My concern is it doesn't look like it's getting blocked. And I understand that technically you're kind of seeing it from the side elevation, but to me, that's the 170 frontage if you're seeing it driving past on 170. Not like on the true side elevations, but it's kind of a front elevation component, so I'm kind of struggling with that as a solution.
Okay.
And I think I would also, just my 2 cents, but I would like to see the 4 and 12 dormer on the 5 and 12, because I'm curious, I think I agree that the 6 and 12 is too much roof given this design, but I'm also have some concerns over what that's going to end, where that thing ends up.
That actually,
That is 4 and 12.
well, that's not the,
Oh, that's on the 6.
that's not the proposed, the new proposed. Go to the
Supplemental.
supplemental.
B.
Sorry, I thought it was on the.
So that's where it says 3 and 12, which, is that 3 or is that a 4?
It's 3.
It is 3.
Let me go back.
So you're afraid it's going to ride too far up the roof?
I'm just curious how far it's going to ride up the roof, because if it's really close to the ridge, I think that's another consideration.
Yeah, yeah.
In this particular instance, I'd rather, if that were the case, I'd rather allow them to do the 3 and 12 to keep the mass balanced.
Yeah, I'm struggling with that, the large mass of it, so whatever
I
we
am
can do
too.
to keep it down.
But I get what you're saying, if the 412 doesn't look right, if it ends up hitting right below the peak.
Yeah.
Maybe this is an exception to allow 312, and I'm asking the architect and
I'm struggle with that because like this isn't the design it has to be. You know what I mean? Like they could make a design that looks good and doesn't have a 5 head and also has all the compliant roof slopes. It just wouldn't be one continuous gable across the whole length of the building. So it's kind of solving a not fully thought through design problem rather than actually being a benefit to the community by allowing the variance. So that's my.
That's valid. All right, any more down your list?
Only other thing, I would restudy the gable vent in relationship with that truss. I feel like it maybe is one or the other.
Like
The
taking
little
out the
square.
Or just doing the vent? I mean, just doing the arch?
The one that we're on right now, that,
Like leaving the bracket in detail, but, the gable detail, but taking the vent out.
The gable will be extended to fit that roof peak as well, so that was just kind of put together sort of quickly. But that will be fitted. I think she might have pulled the gable from the front entrance and just kind of inserted it there, so that will be stretched so that it fits that a little
Right, we're
better.
just saying eliminate the vent.
if you've got 3 attic exhausts or fans up on the top roof, you shouldn't need that.
Well, I don't know what you're.
or you could incorporate a gable detail that is a vent. It just seems odd to have a truss and a vent. If you need the vent, I would make it part of the truss detail.
.8 as a fraction.
What?
0.86 as a fraction is gonna be,
7/8. 875 is 7/8, so it's gonna be very close to that.
What are you factoring?
yes. So the roof line on that gable is gonna drop, just under a foot. It'll be 8 inches, and it's currently at 2.8, so that means that the reveal on the side elevation would be approximately, really close to 2 feet even instead of 2.8, which is what it currently is exposed on. Sorry.
What are we talking about?
What are you talking about?
Which dimension is, I know where she's going, which dimension and it goes from 2.8 to 2?
This is currently
Top to
2.8.
bottom?
It would be 2, so, because this is just under 19 feet. So if I do my math right, which I believe that I have, it is going to drop to basically the top will be what the bottom of this line is.
I don't think you
That's
would
not
drop it. You
Don't
just,
drop
you keep
it.
the plate where it is and increase the slope.
Increase the slope here, but, so that would be, that's my angle though, is what I'm coming, okay.
Okay.
Please, hold for one more second.
You need to do the other line.
Sorry. Nice.
Can you just tell that 412?
I just moved up to the top and extended.
It's not moving. Am I close? No, I've lost it.
Yeah, it's
I've
gonna
lost
take
the
it all the way
angle.
up to the top, more or less.
That's the angle that it'll be at, so it will be almost at the top, won't it?
Did you say it was 412 on the other sheets? That's not just a misprint on that sheet, right?
It says 412 on that
On the
one.
roof plans, it says 412, but those are also the. Okay, well, we're not gonna be able to solve that right now.
Roof vent still does say 412.
Yes, it does not, it looks like a 312 though, if you look at it compared to the other ones.
Okay. What other comments? You have?
I think that's it. Thank you.
Jason?
Michael?
My concern, that Katie already mentioned, was having to do with the landscape and the sidewalk, access to the dumpster, and it's a very small island, but then also the fact that there's no overstory tree over that dumpster and the way that the trucks work when they pull that overhead, so that might be a conflict. And then the sidewalk coming in, there's a very small space at the entrance, so sidewalk that's crosswalks into the building is a very small space for a tree as well. Those are the two items that I saw.
Need to adjust those. So I guess I need to figure out where do we go from here, because there's a lot of things that seem to need to change, or we're not 100% comfortable with. I think, Lydia, you're on the fence. I'm on the fence on things. What about everybody else? I just kind of want everybody's temperature on what they're thinking. Bro, are you one way or the other? You're good middle road? Where you at?
I'm not sure.
Jason?
My challenge is the professional expertise that is on the planning commission is not comfortable with it. That's my challenge. Personally, when I look at it, I don't have the expertise to know what I should be concerned about. Mine lies in other areas, so I rely heavily on you two.
Or not you.
Well, I mean,
It's not full of expertise either.
I appreciate that you've changed some things and are trying to do that. But there are some of those outstanding things, like now that we're really thinking about it, like, you know, what does that roof look like? And we just don't know unless it's drawn. What does that gable end look like? I mean, I know that it's an idea of one, so like, that's great, and I think that we all agree that something needs to be there, but we'd like to see it actually what it is. I think the same thing with all the other elements that we've kind of talked about. I think it's just those roof pitches are making it difficult. And then, of course, you know, the mechanical, making sure that that is disguised.
I think we're agreeable to most of the items that you guys have pointed out this evening. I think there's about 6 that we went through that we would definitely be able to meet. I understand the concern with not being able to see the roof or the dormers at a different pitch. Would there be any way to issue that as kind of a condition of approval, that it could be looked at? If there was something that the planning commissioners were not liking after we resubmitted the revised elevations, that we could revert
Could it
back?
come through like another process? I don't know. If we approved with the conditions we've kind of talked about, and then another condition saying that it has to, I don't know, not a special meeting,
See
but I
how
don't
we can
know.
do that without actually seeing it.
So,
You guys aren't
yeah.
comfortable with that.
It is up to the commission, of course. There's several, so if it is amenable to the applicant, tabling the application would mean that it would need to be resubmitted and placed on another planning commission agenda, which needs to be in 4 weeks in advance of the meeting, which is the last Wednesday of each month.
Can an exception ever be made to that, because the next meeting is in 3 weeks?
Okay. I mean, we could probably accept something up to about Friday, but in order to get the turnaround of the
What, this
packets
Friday?
together, and then, which is quick. I could potentially even push it to Monday morning, but that's in order to get things turned around quickly for you all.
I'm
That's
just
about the-
asking.
Yeah.
That's totally okay, and absolutely up to you all.
I mean, we want to get it through too, so it's not that we're trying to
Right.
not get
So
it through.
It helps you, the applicant, that the next meeting is in 3 weeks because of Thanksgiving, so it's quicker to start
That's true,
with.
but also,
But you also would have to,
Quickly get it done.
an alternate solution, which unfortunately doesn't help Lydia see it much, however, would bring it before Jim, Amanda, and Charlie.
She could come to that meeting, though.
Yes, as long as, well, actually,
she's allowed.
Oh, because
Yes.
there's 4, because it can only have 3 of us.
however,
Then somebody's going to have to.
similar to, but regardless of that, hold for 1 second because I will still get you there, but it could be brought back to DRC, which happens every week, has a more rolling deadline on their submittal for your comment and staff approval technically, because the DRC does not approve applications. And at that time, I could send it separately to Commissioner DePaul if that is what the commission is leaning towards for comment, because it would just be for comment on both parts of that.
Does DRC see HCOD? I mean, it doesn't go to DRC from here normally, right?
Typically, it does not. Typically, I mean, you all are the approval authority.
That's it.
You all are the approval authority for it. Applications that are approved with conditions are either brought back to staff only for them being me 90% of the time, but staff level review of those conditions, or to the development review committee, where technically it is still a staff approval because the DRC does not have approval authority of a HCOD application, but they can provide comment, and I would take that comment as whether or not it was amenable to pass those conditions.
Question on that then. If it were to go the DRC route, which DRC meeting would it be in?
Whichever one they get application in, and I can get it out to you all fast enough to make an agenda.
Talk the timing. So if they put it in next Monday, what would happen?
It would be on in 2 weeks.
So it's almost
Because-
3 weeks again. So it's the same whether it comes back here or goes to DRC, timing.
This feels kind of funky. We're working really hard to try to get an approval today when the majority of us are not
That is
really
also,
comfortable.
I was going to say, if it is amenable to the applicant, tabling it is also an option, but it has to be at the request of the applicant for a table. For the
Ask
dorm,
the applicant, are you interested in tabling?
We would have interest in tabling it. I think we would be able to work through everything as a condition of approval. I mean, we're willing to work with you guys and revise everything as suggested. So I don't really foresee any conflicts or anything that's not going to be able to work for us or our architect. But if you'd prefer to table it and vote at the next planning commission, I think that could work. I think it'll kind of be the same timetable
From
as the
DRC.
DRC meeting, so, yeah.
Yeah, I
it
think
would
that might be the better thing to do
Well,
then.
the process is, we have a choice to approve or deny right now unless you
She just said she
request.
was,
And I hear that that's what you're doing. Or
Yeah.
you're-
Is that what you would like to do? Go ahead and put out a request because we are one way or the other, yes or no, and it's leaning to the no. So would you like to put in a request?
we could table it for now, and we could resubmit, hopefully, if we're able to, we could by this Friday. If you could make an exception for next Monday, I think that we could make that deadline.
it is invite, and it's sounding like table.
Yes.
And I can make an exception until Monday around noon. But if it is in by Friday, I can technically actually get it on next week's DRC because the agenda is still okay to be modified until Friday.
So would it be DRC?
No,
But that affects our vote.
it's actually, if the.
It'll give them-
Monday, it sounds as though tabling is the best solution that will make all parties feel comfortable with.
And then everybody can see it again too.
And it's an
Formally.
official vote, still the
Formally.
planning commission, and Lydia's actively involved as opposed.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I'm more comfortable with that.
Me too. I'd rather have it come back here.
That works.
Okay, so then what do I do when it's tabled? It's just tabled? And then then that's it.
So the application is
So
continued.
the application has been tabled by request of the applicant.
Yes.
Thank you. We'll see you in 3
Thank
weeks.
you. Sorry about that.
I was with the list of things.
The only thing is, I want to make a motion.
Do we have any new business? No?
We do not.
Do we have any discussion? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Jason wanted to make a motion.
I'll make the motion. We're seconding over here with Michael. All in favor? Yes. Aye.
I've got it, my wife's a key.